I am joined by Christina Lopez. She is a content creator with a unique approach to creating and sharing her content. But more importantly, we are talking about burnout and avoiding entrepreneur burnout. Christina, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. Want to dive in and get started, right? So you have moved from coaching to online content creation.
hmm
What got you to that pivot point?
Yeah, so I think it's important. I usually go back. So let me tell you a little bit of the story behind the scenes. So back in 2019, oh my God, it's been 5 years. How
Time
time
flies.
flies. But in 2019, I actually had an online coaching business. So I would do business coaching within the life coaching space, things like that nature. And so it was a really great time in the sense of like I'm doing my mission, I'm helping people on an individual level, creating impact, and just seeing all the growth from that point on. But the challenge that I was having, if you have a coaching business, you probably understand this, but you're a little bit of like the person who does everything, right? You're the person who does the sales, who does the marketing, who does the actual coaching itself. And there's a point where I think actually it's interesting. I actually made the largest amount of money I've ever had in my business, more than my corporate salary. And during that month, I had something where you are making a ton of money, but it's almost like a money hangover. And so what ends
Oh,
up happening, yeah, it's actually quite interesting. So the way that I would describe a money hangover is that you make a large influx of cash, but you're not normally used to that level of money coming into maybe your life or your business. And naturally, you just want to spend it. You just want to get rid of it. And it's very ironic, right? And so what I thought to myself is, I want to do this again. I want to have more money. And what ends up happening is like for some reason in my mind, I thought, oh, if I want to make more money, I need to push more, right? And so I did exactly that. I pushed, I did 20 plus sales calls. And at that point, every single one of them said no. And I'm just thinking to myself, it's not me who who can't do sales. Like this is just not realistic. Like what's going on here? And then I kind of realized at that point that I'm burnt out and I can't do it anymore. So I decided, you know what? If I'm burnt out, I need to switch gears. I actually paused the business, paused the entire coaching business, finished out my contracts, and said, I'm not doing this anymore. And then fast forward later on, I said, I'm missing business. I still want to be able to help people, but I don't want to have the full calendar of sales calls, coaching calls, all those things. And that's how I kind of landed on content creation. And that's when I made that pivot where it's like I'm still able to help people at a large scale, but I don't necessarily want to have the booked calendar that everybody loves to, talk about. That's just not my personality. And so that's kind of how I stumbled on content creation.
I am so glad you're talking about this because as an entrepreneur, it is so easy to get stuck in that mindset of constantly being on. You are doing all the things. You are, you know, doing the booking, the sales, the social media, like you're in every facet of the business. And sometimes it's really hard to remember that when we do hit that burnout space, that zaps our creativity, our energy is gone. We don't bring the same amount of energy to our sales calls or our clients that we originally got to the business to serve in that capacity. So I'm curious, I want to ask you this. Where was your mindset at the moment that you said, I'm not doing this anymore and I'm going to make a pivot and I'm not going to schedule more clients? Like, were you scared?
I was scared because, that's kind of like a coaching business is very dependent on like how many clients you sign, right? As much as
Right.
people like talk about like, oh, you can make a shit ton of money, like, there's a very real aspect of like you cannot have a client tomorrow, right? And so there was that level where I kind of have to put integrity first of like, you know what? I can't sign clients if I'm not willing to serve them. And I think that is a very big differentiator. Like most big gurus would not probably say that because that's literally their livelihood. But, I'm very fortunate at the time that I did have cash flow. I did have clients that I still was serving that I had contracts to fulfill, but I couldn't sign anymore because I just didn't have the capacity to sign anymore. And when you talk about like that moment, the way that that moment happened for me was I actually had, back-to-back sales calls. They all said no. And then at the time, I had like three coaches. I had a mindset coach, a business coach, and a sales coach. And it wasn't until, my last coaching call of the day, like my coach at the time, she said to me, she's like, Tina, are you like burnt out? And I'm like, huh, interesting. That question never occurred in my mind. And I was like, you know what? I think you're right. And then she's like, I think you need to like stop. And it was very hard because I think in the entrepreneurship space, they're very much slow, like go, go, go. Or at the time, I feel like there's a shift currently, but at the time, it was very like you just keep pushing, right? And I just was like, you know what? You're right. I think I am burnt out. So the way that that actually happened is I remember this very vividly. I'm a very big spa girl, treat yourself moment, and I realized I haven't done it in a while.
Same.
So I remember like this was actually during the pandemic when this happened. So there was not much spas out there, but I was able to get like a private, booked one. And I just remember like laying in the pool and laying in the water, and I was just like extremely exhausted. Like it just like it's almost like you just don't realize how exhausted you are until you allow yourself the permission to be exhausted. And I just remember just floating in that pool, and I was just like, I physically cannot do this anymore. And I was like crying, and it was a very hard pill to swallow. And it's not something like, that I want anybody to experience. Like people always think that like pivoting is great, but also, you have to break a house before it gets beautiful, right? You have to tear down the walls. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because I'm, renovating my house right now. But you do have to like have a breaking point. And it's unfortunate that it is the case, but that was my breaking point where I couldn't like show up. I couldn't do anything. I only had the energy for the clients that I was serving, which is, I'm very fortunate to have them, but I really just genuinely couldn't do it. So I took like a 4-month break and I just read a lot of books. I slept in. I actually allowed myself physically to rest so I can work on the mental aspect of it.
You bring up a really important point, right?
Mm.
Pivoting is necessary, but it's not easy. We it can be simple, but it's not easy, right? It You're in a place of letting yourself almost fall apart. And
Yeah.
I love the house analogy. Um, Good luck and Godspeed on the renovations because I feel like they go on forever.
Yeah.
But you do have to let yourself sort of just fall apart, and you're surrendering to that space where
Hmm.
you know that you no longer can be doing and acting, and your energy's not in that same spot.
Yeah.
Kudos to you though. I have to say this because it could be really easy for someone to continue down that path solely for the money. And you were
Yeah.
like, no, that's not why I got into coaching. I'm here to serve people. And the fact that you recognize I can't serve at the level that I want to serve my clients with this state that I'm in. I can't do
Hmm.
this anymore. And it's not fair to me. And it's not fair to them. Like, seriously, like, super amazing that you had that integrity. And that's a testament to you and the level of coaching you were giving. So I
Thanks.
applaud you for that because it could be really easy to be like, no, money's great. I'm great. Comfortable life. You're like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not doing this. There's got to be a better way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I want to go back to the money hangover because I think this is important. um, what is one or two things that you can say to someone to break them or help them be aware that they might be in that money hangover cycle and
Mm.
how to break it?
Okay, so the way that I find it interesting because I'm actually going through like somewhat of a money hangover now. Um, so okay, so the first part of like how do you know you're in it? I think the first thing, the way that you know that you're in it is, say for example, I think the term is called like reversion to the mean, right? You're used to, if you're in your business and you're not necessarily used to like cash influxes, right? Because that's what it is. Like you have kind of like the stable point. Think of a line, right? And then you have like an upward spiral or upward trend. That is the money hangover where you have like the infusion of cash. And then the hangover piece is actually it falling down below the line. That's your stable line. And then you're going back up, right? That going back up piece is the piece where you're like reversion to the mean, like you're used to not having. And so essentially what ends up happening is that because you're used to not having, what ends up being a hangover is that you want to get rid of it. So like think of it like if you have cash and you want to just spend all of it, right? You're like, the moment that you get cash, you're like, ooh, what can I buy? What can I do? All these things. That's kind of an element of like money hangover where it's like, I know I'm not used to this, so I'm just going to go ahead and spend it, right?
I feel like
And
when everybody gets their tax refund, it's like spend, spend,
yeah, that's
spend.
a perfect,
And money and not money, marketing is all like, use your tax refund here. We'll gladly put
yeah.
this on sale so you spend more money with us.
I mean, tax refunds are a perfect example, given that we're recording around tax time, right? And so, it's kind of like that, right? Like you where you want to spend, but it's important. In the moment you make cash, definitely set aside to put taxes because that'll get you. But in any case, what ends up happening is that you just want to get rid of it because you're so used to not having that you want to be back in the state of not having, right? That's essentially what it is. Now, when it comes to, getting out of it, the first tactical thing that I would say is just move the money somewhere else where you cannot see it, right? Like if it's part of your like business checking accounts where it's your day to day and you just see like, oh, I have like $10,000 laying there, like just move it to something else and put it into like a savings, something like that, right? And the reason why I say that is because if you don't see it, you forget that you have it, which is in some ways a good thing because it allows you to be more methodical on what you choose to spend, right? So, as I mentioned, I'm going through like a money hangover right now, right? I have this huge influx of cash currently, and I'm just like, I want to spend it. So like I'm just like I want to buy this. I want to buy vacations. I want to, buy coaching, all these things, but I'm just like, you know what, Tina, like what is it that I actually need? I haven't figured out what is that I need at the moment, so I'm not gonna spend it. And I sometimes even have to pause myself, right? Like I want to buy this camera, but I ask myself, I'm like, well, Tina, like, is that really the strategy? Like, do you really want to do videos? And I'm like, no, I don't. I like writing. And but you just realize yourself, you're like, I'm buying stuff that I don't necessarily need. And if you don't have an answer of what you truly want, if it's really not aligned with what your strategy, with what you're buying, then just don't buy it. And that's hard. And I think in terms of other tactical things, is like I'm not personally, it's ironic that I'm a creator, but like I'm not personally on social media at all. Like I just use it for business purposes. But like I do really think like if you want to stay focused, like head down, like truly just don't focus on what other people are doing. And I don't watch the, oh, look at me, I made money today, all these things, because that just makes me feel like shit. But B, like I they're on their own path and I'm on my own path. So I just head down, focus, and move on.
I love that because that's what we talk about, right? Your authentic business, right? You're building it your way, your rules.
Mm,
And there's certain things that you need to do. Yes, you have to, keep your taxes in line for your business. Like there's certain things that yes are unavoidable, but you can build and create your business the way you choose in a way that aligns with you and the schedule that you want to work. It there's You have very strong boundaries with yourself, and I appreciate that. um, I'm curious too, and I want to jump into the content creation piece, but before that, you mentioned you had three coaches at one time.
yes, I did.
Um, Tell us why, and I appreciate this, but in your opinion, why should everybody have a coach?
I think everybody should have a coach just because you don't know what you don't know, right? And so like there were things like, thank God, truly thank God I had a mindset coach because she was the one who told me like, yeah, that's probably a money hangover you're going through right now. Because I didn't know what it was, right? And it's almost like having a coach allows you to see things, I guess, like remove your blinders, but like remove the blinders that you designate to be removed, right? Because like if you look at social media, you're kind of like, it's almost like shiny object syndrome. You're kind of like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. But like, you're just distracting yourself, A, but B, like the coach, if you have a coach that you choose, you get to choose who you listen to, right? It's kind of like creating a filter of like, okay, like I'm not going to listen to everybody because not everybody works for me, but I am going to listen to some key people because there are some pieces that I really like about them that I want to implement in my business. I'm not copying them, but I'm taking like some things that I like and I'm making it my own. And you get to choose what you want to take from certain, certain strategies and things like that to make your own.
I love that. And it goes back to what you were saying too with the money piece, because you're choosing who you work with that aligns in the same way
Mm-hmm.
too that you you can choose where you put your money. You know, does it align? You can take that step back and pause and
Mm-hmm.
say, is this something I need right now? And is it right for me? We don't just have to dive in to the first offer we get. We can certainly take the time and make sure that it feels right for us. And I know there's so many different types of coaches out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's all different niches, all different specialties. Uh, Important to find the one that specializes in what you need. So not easy
Yeah.
all the time. It can get overwhelming, especially if you're on social media.
Definitely. And one thing I want to add that I wish somebody told me is if you're going to work with a coach, choose like in the business area of things, like choose a coach that has the business model and lifestyle that you want, right? Like look beyond the money, right? Like somebody can be making, 50K months and all those things. But like when you look at their calendar, like it's back-to-back calls, they have team members, they have, sales calls, they have all these things. And it's just like, if that's not what you want, that's fine, right? But like, don't be allured or yeah, don't be allured necessarily by the money. Be like, actually, like, what is your calendar? What does your lifestyle look like? Are you paying any team members? Things like that. Like, I would ask the nitty-gritty details. And currently, like, I don't have a coach right now, and I'll be honest, because I don't see anyone who has the business that I want. So I've just had to build my own business that I want. And people will listen to this podcast and they'd be like, oh, maybe they might want my business model. But I'd honestly ask you to question me. Like, do you want my business model? Why do you want it? Right. And so, a lot of people talk about like passive income, and which I do have passive income streams in my business, but you know what? Like, you may not like the way I do things, and that's fine. But challenge yourself to really think about what is the lifestyle that you want and really identify what that looks like, because not many people will do things that you the way that you want to do, but also have the courage to like say no. I don't necessarily think coaching is always a requirement to be successful. It does help you move faster, but I think there's almost a lack of sometimes creativity in what is it the business that I want. And you don't always need a roadmap. Sometimes you just need to figure it out. And for me, in my case, I couldn't find a coach, so I just had to figure it out. But it took me 2 years to figure it out. I wish I could invest in a coach that taught me the things I did,
It can
but
be
I couldn't.
overwhelming though. You bring up a good point. It's very easy, especially with the social media. There's everybody's on a platform,
Mhm.
right? To think that you can just plug and play. Their system worked, therefore it must work for me. And
Mhm.
I'm just going to copy what they're doing. And it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
because, like you said, your business looks very different from mine. Your goals and what you want are different. It
Mhm.
it's not that simple to just, okay, let me copy this. And you do have to do your the time too,
Mhm.
and build your own. If you're building your own business, it really needs to be your own.
Yeah.
So
And
I'm curious what you're doing now with content creation, and how
yeah.
you've completely changed your focus.
Yeah, so I kind of look at my content business as like three pillars, right? And so I have to kind of tell you like what are my non-negotiables because that's what I had to start with, right? So, when I pivoted, I said, no, we're not doing things this way. So, what that looks like is I don't have any sales calls. I don't have any team members. And I don't really like I don't want to pay for ads or have to the requirement for me to show up. And so what I mean by that is like I want to be able to take a month off, which I did last year. I went to Asia and still have the business make money without my presence. So those were the kind of the things that were my requirements and my non-negotiables. And so the way that I kind of laid it out for me is I kind of have three pieces of the business that I focus on, right? I have the automated content, and some people were like, let me explain this a little bit. I'll explain in a second. I have the automated content, I have the email marketing, and I have the conversion pieces. So this could be like digital products, affiliate marketing, things like that, things that are passive, right? So let me talk a little bit about the automated content. So automated content for me looks like creating content once. I don't necessarily love the idea of having to be, repurposing content multiple times to different platforms. It's not necessarily what I like to spend my time. I don't like to spend my time even sitting down like scheduling content because I just think it's a waste of time. So what that looks like for me is I have one long form piece of content, which is usually a blog article because I love to write, or sometimes it'll be a YouTube video, so it'll be like a video transcription. Um, and I leverage my background is in systems, automation, and all those things, and I leverage AI and automation to actually take that content piece and repurpose it to multiple platforms for me. And so I actually don't post on Instagram, don't post on Pinterest. Like I have my automations do all those things for me because why not? Right. And so what I also really like about this What I also really like about this is that I'm able to actually, we call it our daily content generator, which is, I'll be blunt, it's our $9 offer. I made it so that people can avoid burnout. And it's super affordable. But essentially, that automation, like, will take a content piece from my content database and randomly, like, choose a random piece, spin it out, and post it to multiple platforms for me. That's my way where I'm able to keep up with the algorithm without actually showing up for the algorithm. And so that's the one piece of business where, like, when we think of traffic, that's the area where it comes to. Now, I have other traffic strategies like collaborations, bundles, freebie swaps, and other things, those things that are a very large part of my business when we think about traffic, which are, very key. I think if you're going to grow your business without social media, you really want to lean on collaborations. But all these traffic pieces really point to one call to action. One call to action that I have is join my email list because, I don't necessarily think that like social media is where you want to spend your time making money. And what I mean by that is that like social media helps you build a brand, but it's the slowest way. I think content is the slowest way to make money. The
Mm.
fastest way to make money, in my opinion, is actually email marketing. A lot of people will say it's dead. I highly, highly disagree with them, right? And so when I talk about email marketing, I'm talking about like actually, providing value-driven content, right? But there's two pieces to this, right? So value-driven content, but also content where you're gonna sell, right? I think there's a lot of people in the industry who say like, "Oh, like I don't want to sell every day." Like I think it's BS. Like if you have a business, right? If you want to make money, then like you do need to sell every day, but not in a way that's salesy, right? Not in a way where it's like inauthentic. What I mean by that is like kind of thinking about like offer-based selling, right? And so what that looks like for me is obviously I have funnels in the background. Like if you sign up for certain freebies, it'll point to certain products and things like that. But there is one thing that I'm doing where I'm actually doing like, at the moment it's like 3 times a week, but like insight story based email. And so what that looks like for me is, I like to be cheeky with my email list and I like to tell them like what's going on in my life and things like that. And I'll take like a random story, like for example, I saw someone at the gas station playing slots machines, right? And that's the story that I have. But the lesson that I have is like, when I think about this gentleman who is playing slots machines, he's hoping for money, but he could be using that time to actually go outside and actually talking to his customers, right? And then when we bring the link, it's like, instead of playing slots machines every day, I could teach you X course. You can use this course where I teach you how to do it, by yourself and things like that, right? So it's just like one call to action And you'd be surprised. Like, I think there's the sentiment that I've heard where, people like buying more than you like selling. And so like it's important to think about like when you truly come from selling as service, I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad selling to my email list because I know it's helped them. And honestly, it helps me. But I am very upfront when a person joins my email list, like as their welcome email, I say, look, this is what you're gonna get. This is the freebies. This is expectations I have of you. These are the expectations you should have of me. And one of them is that I'm going to be selling because I think it's service, right? So there's that area. Now, the last piece is conversions, where I think about like what are the passive strategies for me to make money? Like I mentioned, I don't love sales calls. I'm not going to do them anymore. Um, and so what that looks like is passive products. So we're thinking of like digital products, affiliate marketing, those things where it really does not involve my time. And I like having that, passiveness in my business. And sometimes there's parts of me that do miss coaching, but I'm taking it with a grain of salt. Like I just like I want to be in a position where I am actually currently in a position where I have like the stable passive income foundation where it's making like think of it my stable income where I don't necessarily need to have clients. I don't want to be in the position where I need to have clients. I want to be in a position where I want to have clients. And that's the position I'm in, but it took me 2 years to get to that point.
That's amazing. Like I think about that. You can always go back to it if you choose, but you have set yourself up in a way that it gets to be your choice. And I think that brings a completely different energy to the call, to your mindset, to how you serve. Um really really important. I
Yeah.
have a question though.
Yes.
You mentioned the algorithm.
Yes.
Can you give people tips, because the algorithms keep changing, right? Like,
Yeah.
what is it about the algorithm that people need to know right now?
Not depend on it, honestly. Like if I were to depend on an algorithm to make money, I'd be really screwed. And I think that's a lot of positions that people put themselves in where I don't think it's necessarily where you should be. Like I said, if you're depending on the algorithm, you should be building a brand. If you want to make money, you should be building your email list. And so I really don't care about the algorithm because it's not where I make my money. Like I don't want to have the requirement to be on social media and to post an Instagram story in order to make money. Truly. And so I can't provide like, oh, like you need to do this in order to like please algorithm. Like, no, like I don't necessarily think that's realistic, but it's also like not a great business practice in my opinion, right? And so because like you said, it changes, it's unreliable. And so what I do is like the only thing I do from like a content perspective is I use my daily content generator to repurpose it like every single day. Like I use AI and automation to take my long form content pieces where I want to write, but I'm only writing once and I'm only creating content once. And then the daily content generator will automatically spin it out and like, post content daily for me on these platforms just to please the algorithm, just to show like you're active. But like I don't I don't show up. Like I really don't. But that's because like all my call to action, my one call to action piece is going to be like, hey, join my email list, join the content creators club, all those things. Because again, my email list is where I make money and that's where it's more reliable for me. Like I know if I send a specific set of emails per month and I do a specific set of promotions, it's at that point it's just like math for me where it's like, I have these funnels on my email list and they convert at a certain percentage. So at that point, like I just need to focus on traffic channels. So what that's going to look like is, I know if I participate in a specific amount of bundles per month, I can guarantee that I'm going to get, X amount of email subscribers to my list. All those things where I'm like, okay, if I'm getting X people in my list, 100 people in my email list within a week, then like, and my funnel converts at 5%, then I know 5 sales are going to come through, right? Things like that. And like I want people to think about that. Like I want people to think about the perspective of the metrics that actually matter. Like I don't care if I get like one like on my post. I do care if people are opening my emails so that I can make one sale. I'm not chasing the like, I'm chasing the money. And I think people need to switch that mindset of like, if you really want to build a sustainable business, you need to focus on the practices that are actually going to help you get there. And likes don't pay the bills. So That's my 2 cents.
It's a hobby versus a business. The likes are
Yes.
the hobby, the money's the
Yep.
business. Because really, if you want to build a sustainable business, you have to make money. It's
Yeah.
that's what makes a business.
Yeah.
You could coach as a hobby and make no money.
Mhm.
I'm not saying do it, but you could.
Yes, you could.
Where can people find you?
Yes. So the best way to find me is actually by joining my content creators club. It's we send one weekly newsletter where we teach you how to automate your content, traffic, and income in less than 5 minutes per week. So definitely recommend to grab our content creators club, and you'll get our daily content idea generator, our idea content generator, sorry. And that's just going to help you as like a little welcome gift for you to come and be part of the community. So we're almost close to 2,000 strong. So I would love to see you there.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anything else? You had mentioned a freebie offer for listeners.
Yes. So, we talked a lot about email marketing. So, I actually have a welcome email template. I alluded to it earlier. So, if you are someone who's like, I want to start an email list, but I don't know what the first thing I should say is, then this welcome email template is going to help you. It's going to help you filter the right people to your list and, to try like not attract people that you don't want on your list and those things like that. So I usually sell it for $9 per template, but I'd love to give it to your audience completely for free with the coupon code podcast24. So I'll send that to you and then hopefully your audience can grab that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. Make sure you check it out. We'll put all the links in the show notes. Anything else? Any last minute thoughts before we wrap up today?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I would say is like keep going, right? Like I always like tell myself like if you don't give up, there's no other option to succeed, but also let go of the timeline. Like I think that's been very key for me. It's like let go of the timeline and let go not necessarily like of the goal, but like in some ways let go of the goal, but focus more so on the habits that make that goal a reality. Habits are more important than the goals in my opinion. And so if you focus on the habits that actually are driving towards the goal, you'll be a lot better. So it's not the end of the world if you don't hit X amount of dollars by the end of this month. It's really not. And I think a lot of people focus too much on that. But just stay focused. Stay in your own lane, and that'll help you get a lot farther.
I love the habits, right? The habits will build consistency and get you the momentum you need. And then eventually things fall into place.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Christina Lopez, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to wrap up the way we do every episode. You are never stuck, you are never lost, and you are never, ever alone. At any given moment, you can use your power to pivot, make a new choice, and start again. I will talk with everyone on the next episode. Take